Welcome to Paintbrush and Ivories, the podcast for artists and curious creatives that connects creativity with the heart and soul. I'm Michelle Walker, and I'm here with my creative soul sister, Jennifer Ruth Russell. Hey, Jen.
Hello, it's so good to be with you.
It's been a minute.
Yes, it has.
So it's great to have this chance to chat to you, and I'm really interested in hearing what's been happening in your world. And I know that you and I have got a couple of parallels in what's been happening in our lives as creatives that I wanted to explore. So how about you lead us off with some ideas about what's been happening for you in the last little while in your life as a creative that you want to share?
Wow, well, I have to say, I think the biggest thing that's happened to me is a realization of a desire. And
Mhm.
that is that I realized that the books that I've been working on and producing and publishing on my own, I really decided that I would love to be a best-selling international author with my books translated in many languages, and wanting to really stick with the creative side and not do all the other stuff. Let me just say it like that.
Yep,
The
yep.
other stuff. And I was trying to go one by one and look for international publishers. And I was discouraged because I'm just not good at doing that. And I was, sending query letters to this and didn't hear a word. And then I popped up in my inbox a Hay House boot camp if you want to get your book published. And I've always thought PayPal, listen to me, Hay House was my home. But I read something a long time ago that they didn't take channeled material, which was I
Mm.
like, that's crazy because I know a lot of their authors that do that. Anyway, I had just kind of set that aside, but immediately knew that I needed to take this boot camp 3 days, 4 hours a day. I did everything in my power to stay in the room. I'm really got itchy feet. It's hard for me to do that. And it was really wonderful. And the result of that is that I had the opportunity to send in a proposal, a book proposal, not even dealing with a query letter, just going right to the book proposal. So that's what I've been doing. And I want to talk more about it, but maybe in segments because it's been life changing for me.
That's fantastic. When you look back at the trajectory to get to this point of thinking and realizing the desire to step up and be an international published author, multiple languages, that's not come about overnight. There's been years of stepping stones, hasn't there? So when did
Yes.
you first get the desire to write your first book? When was that?
Well, it has a lot to do with my relationship with Mother Mary. Mother Mary, and it's been like 10 years, 11 years actually. The Mother Mary has been speaking to me and giving me messages and answering my zillion questions. And I was teaching a course, Angels of Abundance Master Course, and I wanted to do a shorter course. And I was going to just take things out of that other course that had a different book, somebody else's book, which is a great book. Um, but Mother Mary spoke to me and she said, I want you to pull in a group of light workers, and we're going to do one lesson or message a day for 21 days, and we're going to put it into a book. So I actually
Mm.
got instructions because I had never really thought about being an author, to tell you the
Mhm.
truth. It wasn't
Mhm.
like I woke up when I was 18 going, I think I'll be an author. It wasn't like that.
No, I understand that. And that was true for
Yes.
me too. So a decade on, and you've written how many books now?
Well, right now we're working on the seventh book.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah. And for how many? Four and a half are published. The very last one, and I'll share that with you later,
Yeah.
is now I'm going to go ahead and self-publish it because I'm in the waiting period right now of seeing if I'm going to be received by Hay House or not. But it's been life-changing.
Mm.
So let me ask you the same question. I know that you've been up to a lot
Yeah,
and
I have. And
been
I've been a
had a
little quiet
very
about it.
fruitful, let's say a very fruitful time. So tell us.
It feels like a flourishing. I was doing a review of my work had come out of Swell, and it felt like a really good time to sit down with my journal and really pour out the things that I was noticing. Primarily, I started to write about Swell as an experience. So, Swell Sculpture Festival is a big festival about an hour north of me here at the Gold Coast in Australia. And the thing that really struck me was the the kind of success of Swell, which it was successful for me, started years ago. And I think that's what I recognized when I did my journaling was there was all these steps. So at the end of 2019, I decided I wanted to put my art and my creative practice in the center of my world. And the beginning of 2020, I started working more consistently. And then, of course, COVID happened. And for me, COVID wasn't the challenge that it was for a lot of people. Financially, it was, but it sent me into the studio and I got to play. And 2021, I had my first big solo exhibition of paintings and two joint exhibitions. So 2021 was quite a big year for me. And at the end of that year, I had a proposal in with my colleague and art friend, Jude White, for what was going to morph into Ash Mud and Tears. We got accepted with the preliminary idea when it was going to be just about the fires and called Firescar. And between the acceptance and the exhibition in May last year, 2023, lots of things happened, including the massive floods in this part of the world. And we, the whole community was reeling, and I found my artwork went to those issues. So I felt like pushing paint around on a canvas wasn't there for me anymore. And I went into object. And I know we've talked about this, but it felt so significant, that process of holding things when so much had been lost, so much had been ruined in the floods, the preciousness of things, not as an externality, but as an extension of ourselves. And that's where the work around the house structure, the form of the house became, I guess, came through in my work for that exhibition. And then there was the stepping stones from there. So I guess, that work in the exhibition became the small work that inspired the big work. And here I am, kind of embracing a whole new chapter. So I guess potted history, very highlight footnotes. That's it. And for me, it's very much about recognizing where I'm at now, that there is a whole backstory. There's a whole series of steps of almost bravery in those steps that get me
Yes.
here. So it's not this one big step that
Yes.
puts my work out onto a much more public stage where tens of thousands of people saw it. It's all these other steps, and recognizing that we have to be brave today and next week and this month and next month. Yeah.
Yes, and you must tell us about you've gotten some awards for your work, and I think it's important to speak that out loud to especially our beloved community here.
Yes. I was very excited. I've actually been really privileged and honored to have a series of awards in the last 12 months. And I find myself feeling very blessed by that the universe is giving me nods that, yes, I'm in the flow. I'm doing the thing I need to be doing. Whenever I doubt, it's time to re-anchor into those. I was going to show some images of my work because we're recording this as a video this time, which is new for us,
Yes, it
because
is.
I feel like so much of what we do is visual. I know your beautiful singing voice comes across in the podcast, but the images of the work I really felt as part of the story, and the images of your books is part of the story. It would be lovely to share those. So why don't you take us on a little bit more of a journey of what's been happening with your writing leading up to the Hay House proposal.
Well, I would love to do that, but I think because we're just talking about the wards and the visual part of you, let's share it now. Let's share
Okay.
the visual part of what you have been telling us about, just because I think it'll anchor it for everybody.
So this image is of holding it together, the works that I did as part of Ash Mud and Tears. They were 3 separate works, and they were 3 of 10 small sculptures that I made out of the recycled timber from a dining table that came out of the floods, that I salvaged after the floods. And this work was the work that a dear friend of mine said, that would look good big, and seeded the idea of taking these works from 13 centimeters up to something much, much bigger. And that's what resulted in these works, which is the Holding It Together trio that I was just recently showing in Swell Sculpture Festival, and that next week we'll be going into the Brunswick Nature Sculpture Walk. These works were made out of recycled, reclaimed fence palings, and the metal is a mixture, but the strapping you can see on the outside is made from mower blades, and the one on the right is Rio bar, the one in the middle is star pickets, and the one on the left is barbed wire. And when you look at the one on the left, there are 800 cut pieces of barbed wire and 800 drill holes in that sculpture.
Wow.
So that was fun. And then seeing them, this is my mentor, Wendy Mills, who I was lucky enough to win a mentorship award, and she looked after me, and she was a real pioneer in the 80s and 90s doing public art, public sculpture in Australia when it really was a man's world. And she was incredibly inspiring and very supportive. And then this is the work on site at Currumbin Beach as part of the Swell. This photo was taken by Lex, who's the professional photographer. And this is the gong. So this is me at the awards night, having won the Emerging Artist Bursary for 2024. And that's Claire, thank you. That's Claire Maynard from Merge Creative, who sponsored that award.
So
So
awesome.
that's my visuals
So
for the story.
how heavy are they? They look so full, and I don't know if they're just shells or if they're all compacted with weight. How heavy are they?
They're shells, but they're still heavy. And
Mhm.
we built them so that they come apart, except the third one doesn't come apart. It needs to travel as a single item. And the weight of them is actually an interesting factor. So I had help. My beloved Ian, he gave me a hand. We wrangled the truck. I drove the truck. We wrangled the sculptures on and off. And there was a big moment, probably 3 days before the installation of the work at Swell. I just had nerves 24/7. I was unable to calm the nervous system enough. I mean, it wasn't massive. I'm not talking 10 out of 10, but it was a 4 or a 5 constant. And that was interesting to me because I realized that I'd been thinking about it for more than 12 months. I'd been working on the work. I started at the beginning of January physically to make the work. And I'd been sitting ready with the work done for about 5 weeks or 6 weeks or something. And it felt like I didn't want anything to go wrong right at the last minute. And there was lots of things that could have, like it was difficult driving the truck. It was difficult getting the works onto the truck. It was, there was lots of things that I felt were a little bit of a challenge. And when it got there and when it got in, there was a moment as I was driving in with the truck that I realized this was a whole year cycle, and I got a real welling up. I kind of, yeah, there was a bubble of emotion to recognize the end of an endeavor. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the end, but it was a really big milestone that was significant to acknowledge. And I don't know that we always stop. And I don't I've got better as I've got older, just to make the time to really pause and think about what was that about and give myself some reflection time. So that's my story. Let's hear more about yours.
So important to stop and acknowledge what's happened. And I always tell myself, stop in this moment. This is why you're here. This is what's happening in this moment. Enjoy it, and fill full with it, right? So powerful. Well, I realized that I haven't told our audience yet that I had an album that came out that goes with my last book that I'm publishing right now. So I will do some show and tell here,
Excellent.
just to show everyone what I have been up to. Okay, I have had the most wonderful artist that has been helping me throughout this journey of books. And here are my books all together that are out now, four of them. The fifth one is already, well, there's two more that are out, that are coming out right now. And the seventh one's being written. But this is the 21 Days to Abundance. That Michelle did this beautiful painting, and my graphic artist always puts these paintings in beautiful places. And it was actually 21 chapters. It was called a small book. And this is how to create was the next one. It came the same way. It was a 21 lessons on how to create with Mother Mary and friends. And what I found out when I went to Hay House Boot Camp is that these are considered pamphlets. So my book proposal has put these two together, and it's called Creating Abundance with Mother Mary. And the beautiful thing is they move together so beautifully one to the other. And if this if Hay House says, yes, we want to publish you, I know that I'm probably going to have to lose these covers, and that's going to make me very sad. It's part of the growth that I'm going to have to let go of some creative control. I know that, and I'm ready for that, although it does make me sad. And then empowered prayer is completely different. I do a lot of empowered prayer. My life is based around it, and this beautiful cover, Michelle once again did this beautiful cover, and it's just an instruction manual of how to do a form of prayer that is super effective and powerful. In fact, Michelle was in that class, and she didn't have any formal prayer before that or any way to speak the word, and now you would not believe it. She's amazing, amazing, Michelle. And then as everything morphed too with my work with Mother Mary, started to flow in more and more into abundance, and a new faith currency started. It was 2 years before this book even appeared into the world, because it was a deep learning for me, and it still is, of a new faith currency, and that is opulence infusion. And this grew from 21 chapters, very small chapters, to now 55 chapters. So this is more of a real book as far as the industry is concerned. And let me show you what's going on right now. This is my Bandcamp site, actually. This is where I house all my music. And you can also get my music on regular music platforms. But as an artist, I felt it was really important. My husband and I both felt it was important for us to put our music a place where we would actually be awarded financially for people that come and listen to our music and buy our music. So this is where all my music is, right here. And this is the last album, Expanded Light Body, which goes with the book. And once again, Michelle designed this. Wasn't it just amazing? And this is songs to activate your 5D chakras. There's a song for each of them. And guess what? It goes with a book. It goes. So here is the book cover. And you can see they go together perfectly as a companion. And Michelle, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth, for putting this in the form of a book with title and everything. So this is called Expanded Light Body Meditations. And there's a meditation that goes with each one of the songs that really opens up the understanding, and actually is a transmission to help you expand into your 5D chakras with the archangels. There's archangels that are guardians for each one of our our chakras, and this is the 12. And you can see if you're used to the earth chakras, this is a light body, which is your expanded fifth dimensional being. As you can see, there's some above the head, there's one below the below the feet, and Michelle did a great job of illustrating these. And I'm very excited to be also putting this in an audiobook, because now you can put music and words together in audiobooks.
Mm.
And I have been waiting for this platform forever.
It's the
Because
combination, isn't it?
yes, I remember the very first thing that I wrote was it was called the Virtue Songs A through Z for kids. There are 52 songs on the virtues, and it was to go with the book. But Barnes and Noble was like, we don't have anywhere to put music and books together, and that was, oh my gosh, when was that? That was like way back at the turn of the century. This is like over 25 years ago. So that's been a long journey. Talk about expansion. That's been a long journey to get to this expansion.
I'm wondering what we might want to do in terms of wrapping up this thought process around, I guess this is a bit of a conversation around the evolution of us as artists, as creatives, isn't it? And I think, what are some of your learnings or your reflections, and more deeply exploring, perhaps before we finish off, your experience of doing the Hay House proposal and what that meant?
Wow, I'm so glad you asked that question, brought it around again, because it was profound. I had to face every single one of my insecurities. I had to
Mm.
face every single part of me that was like, you can't do this. By the time I finished it, and I kept plodding along, and I have some dear friends and a mastermind group that always helps me continue to remember what it is that I desire. By the time I finished, it took me 6 months from the beginning, and thank goodness they gave us a very specific form that we had to fill out with limitations. And I got to tell you, I love limitations because they really make you fine tune and get to the point, right? And I had to do, I forget the title of, what is it called? Comparative analysis. So you really have to get into the market, like who is doing what you're doing and how are they doing? And what's different? What are you doing that's different? And as artists, it's so easy to back off of that stuff. But the more I feel like I've allowed myself to go into the market and see it, I have been encouraged that what I have is unique and it is purposeful. And I have to tell you that the amount of belief that I have in my work and in myself has grown so much that if Hay House says no to me, I am fine. I'm like, the value is like in my cells, and it's okay because I know that this is going to journey in the world where it needs to be. And I
Mm.
feel that I'm doing my best work that I've ever done. The chapters that I'm writing now are just, wow, they've gone from 150 words and now they're going to like 1,000 words. And I feel like my whole mind and my heart and everything has opened up to a higher level. And I also feel that I'm right in the middle. Michelle, what this feels like when you're right in the middle of what you're supposed to be doing. I
Mm.
don't think there's any other experience that is as delicious,
No, it's
It's so
so
beautiful.
satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the way at the beginning of this conversation you said with great humility and conviction your desire to be an internationally published author.
Mhm.
And I know you, and I know that comes not from ego about having gongs and accolades, but about having your work and the gifts that you've been gifted shared further, taken further into the world. And I love that. I love that about you, and I love that about what I've seen change. You were always anchored and grounded in your work, but I feel that is even more true now. And I love that your reflections acknowledge that doesn't matter what the result is from Hay House. It's actually
Yeah.
put you on a path. It sent you in a trajectory. I had an interesting experience in the last 2 weeks. And I was reflecting on this when I was writing my notes, and it is about identity and how we see ourselves as artists. And 2 years ago, or more or less, I did a great piece of work with a wonderful creative mentor, Michelle Luminato, and as part of her Origin art membership group. And she asked us to look at ourselves and how we described ourselves. And
Mm,
I realized that I had this view of myself 2 years ago that I was a local, middle of the road, mediocre artist. And it
mm,
was such an interesting kind of observation or reckoning that that is actually how I saw myself. I didn't see myself as adventurous or innovative or anything. I was just this little meek mouse. And
mm,
I went, no, that's not me. And in that moment, I recast back then. I realized that I could be nationally acknowledged. I could be an international artist. That was okay. And not from an ego sense, but it was just like a false limiting belief, really. 2 weeks ago, I had a lovely young woman who was helping with PR, and she wrote a media release and didn't check it with me, and it went out into the world. And it was so interesting because apart from some factual errors, she referred to me as a local art teacher. And I had such an interesting reaction.
mm,
One, I'm not an art teacher because most people, when you say art teacher, would recognize you as being part of the education system, that you're teaching school kids. I am a teacher of creative in that I tutor and teach jewelry making from my studio, and I do that through our local college. But the local was also the other thing. And I realized that I'd outgrown local
mhm,
and that I was no longer just a local artist, which was kind of, the just is almost subliminal in that sense, just a local art teacher. So I had this sort of reckoning with myself, realizing that that was definitely a skin I'd outgrown. And in preparation for our conversation today, I did a meditation and I got the snake symbol, which is a bit special for me because I'm a year of the snake, but it came with this message about skin being shed. And it's
mm,
acknowledging that this process of, for me, in my evolution as an artist, is that I have expanded what's possible. I have become more brave, and not just this week, but it's been a series of little brave moves, stretching myself, stepping out of my comfort zone, being really willing to look at my creative practice and how that marries with all of who I am, which is where I'm at right now, that cusp of really reconsidering everything I've done in my art practice through the lens of what it means to me in my care of country and my connection to nature. So I'm a bit excited by this moment in time.
yeah, me too. Me too. You know, accepting who you are and where you've come from. And I mean, I look at it too through the spiritual lens. Like it seems like I have left every single group that I was a member of, right? And there's something about me that always is pushing the envelope. And I had this realization just a couple days ago in a new way that here I am. This is the age of Aquarius. We're in the beginning stages of the age of Aquarius. It's a new age. And I am speaking the truth that has been given to me with well, like you said, boldness and with courage. And I feel great about it. And it's like looking forward instead of looking back. And
Mm.
it feels so good. Feels so
Hmm.
good. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I might suggest this might be Evolution of an Artist Part 1, and we'll see where we go with this next. Thank you, Jen. Is there anything
Thank
else
you.
that you wanted to mention before we wrap today?
I think I just want to encourage our listeners to follow your heart, and just like, Michelle she's gone from being a painter artist, right? I never use the right words, I'm sorry, but to being a bold sculpturist. And I know that's not even where you're going to end up, and the morphing of your artistry is so beautiful. And
Mm.
I love this. I love this about you, and I love this about me too, and all artists, you're not going to be doing the same thing for the
Not
rest
unless
of
you
your
choose
life.
to. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unless you choose to, but also if you choose to, it'll always grow, because we're like trees, so we always get new leaves every year. I mean, it's just like it is the very nature of creativity.
Yeah, yeah, I love
Yeah.
that too. Well, thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey with me. And thank you for joining me to be able to put a podcast together. It's been a delight. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Yes. Bye for now.
Bye for now.